A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kanchi Shah. It gives me immense pleasure in welcoming you all to the Business Resilience Masterclass with industry leaders and subject matters who will present curated insights around proactive business resilience. I welcome you on behalf of Dell Technologies, VMware, and Strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, in a perfect world, an organization's systems would run without problems 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But we don't live in a perfect world. Things happen. And when they do, your organization's ability to carry on in the face of adversity will depend on the resiliency of its systems. Being a cyber resilient organization means being able to fight through adversity and continue to operate, even if it's in a scale down mode. And with this as a driver, we present to you today's masterclass on business resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, towards the end of today's proceedings, we would request you to please fill in the feedback form. Your feedback is invaluable to us as it helps us improve the content, structure, and delivery of our conferences. What's more, upon submitting the duly filled feedback form, you will receive an attendance certificate and the cyber recovery white paper. So do ensure that you fill in the feedback form and submit it towards the end of today's proceedings. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to open forum today, and I'd request Mr. Arjun Vishwanathan, Chief Research Officer, Strategy, to please take over and deliver the keynote for the day. Over to you, Arjun.
Hello and welcome. Good morning. My name is Arjun Vishwanathan. I'm the Chief Research Officer at Strategy, and I'm going to be your host today in talking about and setting the context for what promises to be a fascinating set of conversations through the next hour and a half ahead. Because as we speak to eminent business leaders and industry IT practitioners, we talk about the need for organizations to embed business resilience and continuity in the very fabric of the transformation journeys. Because as resilient business and technology landscape evolve, they are also increasingly helping progressive businesses navigate the complexities of an uncertain future by reducing operational costs and increasing operational efficiencies. Through the reconfiguration and modernization of the IT ecosystem, one that is existing, legacy, as well as emergent, enterprises are realizing that they have the ability to build agility, optimize revenues, and last but not the least, find new ways of operating business models. IT, in fact, has been observed to play a key component and perhaps a pivotal role in the revival to reinvention strategies of most organizations as they sit and look set to navigate not just the short term, but the long term opportunities and the challenges ahead. And to talk about all of this, please allow me to present my screen. The whole concepts of business resilience, cybersecurity, and such facets of industrial resilience need to be decoded today. And I think it should suffice to say that some of our folks within industry have done some amazing and fascinating research and brought out directions and predictions to help industry navigate what certainly promises to be a value-oriented journey, but one that is complex. And while I will not read through each of these, I think it should suffice to say that our friends at Gartner Research have done a fantastic job in being able to analyze how the cyber resilience ecosystem and the landscape, the domain by itself is going to evolve. Because if you look at, and while I said I'm not going to read through each of these, point number 2 is that by 2024, organizations that have the ability to adopt a cybersecurity-led mesh architecture will be able to reduce the financial impact, and such as we have heard, read, and observed over the last 18 months, the financial impact of security incidents by almost about 90% on an average. The third point is equally fascinating because it is also worrisome, not just for industry, but for humanity altogether, because Gartner certainly observes that by 2025, threat actors, both state as well as not state, as well as those that are anonymous, will have weaponized operational technology environments successfully enough to cause human casualties. Now, those are certainly worrying by any stretch of the imagination. But 2025, and this particular point, of course, is what this event of ours, which is sponsored by Dell and powered and curated by Strategic, certainly hits the nail on the head because it gives us the direction to how organizations must evolve and transform in the future, which is that by 2025, 40% of boards of directors will have a dedicated cybersecurity committee overseen by a qualified board member, which pretty much lays the foundation of how organizations will be approaching the whole concepts of building and embedding cyber resilience within the very fabric of business transformation as well as the organization's vision, mission, and objectives. The last one, of course, is one that I find particularly interesting, which is that by 2024, and we have noticed that conversations to this effect have already manifested themselves amongst various think tanks as well as policy groups, which is that by 2024, the United Nations perhaps will endorse internet blockade as an economic sanction. Uh, and as the title of the slide says this, the world as we know it has truly evolved because nowhere and no time else have we been in such uncertain times for us to infuse the levels of effort, investments, energies, and time into as existential a strategy as cyber resilience and business resilience. And as we move forward, I think each of us today in this room, in this event, realize that the threat landscape as we knew it traditionally has involved and evolved with greater levels of complexities, sophistication, and of course, organization, because not just have the attack surface has expanded from devices to applications to sensors to the cloud to wearable devices to the whole concepts of mobility. What we're also seeing is that attacks today are at an extremely high level of sophistication, perhaps sophisticated enough to deter the concepts of cybersecurity architectures and strategies that are in place in most organizations, therefore mandating the imperative and the urgent necessity to evolve and transform. The whole concepts of automation and such as industry is accelerating to a greater autonomous level of industry and operating models. Cybercrime syndicates have also realized that automation is an area and a domain that is, well, easily penetrable. There are, of course, extended vulnerabilities compounded by the lack of skilled professionals, not just at a local or an Indian level, but perhaps across the globe, calling for perhaps a very concentrated and concerted effort globally to create the levels of skills, sophistication, and talent for organizations to be able to leverage such talent and skills to truly future-proof their resilient strategies. And while this may suffice to set the context, I certainly will focus on multiple research that is pointed out and brought out the approach or the very starting point of how organizations must approach the whole concepts of business resilience. And this, in continuation with the previous slide, is the ability for organizations to put together an architecture, put together an ecosystem which will identify, which is develop the organizational understanding to manage a large cybersecurity team across assets, both in the hardware and the software space, as well as the platform space. The second is the ability to protect, where organizations must focus and invest on developing and implementing the appropriate safeguards to ensure delivery of critical infrastructure services. The third is the ability to detect, preemptive as well as post facto, and develop an appropriate set of activities to identify the occurrence of security events and the surfaces on which such events are perhaps prone to manifest themselves. Fourth is, of course, the ability to respond, something that all of us are aware of. Um, what and the set of activities that are clearly defined or in maturity will evolve as organizations respond to a detected security threat. And last but not the least, the ability to recover critical data, invaluable assets, and an existential brand by developing and implementing for resilience and to store the capabilities and capacities of services that were impaired due to a security threat. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was what I wanted to introduce to you as the context for today's conversation that will follow over the course of the next 60 to 75 minutes, for you to be able to view such conversations that are authentic and immersive, to be able to approach and go back to offices tomorrow and approach the whole concepts of embedding cyber resilience within the very fabric of your organizations, with the stark difference that today board leaders, corner officers, and CEOs are more than any time ever in the history of IT and technology aware of, ready to, and enthusiastic to participate in what promises to be a value oriented journey, but one that is complex. That was I, Arjun Vishwanathan, your host, setting the context for the masterclass on cyber resilience and business resilience. Uh, we will request you, as always, to please take a few minutes to fill in our feedback form. Your feedback's invaluable to us and helps us assimilate and aggregate all your inputs and insights to curating uh, events in much better fashion and in much more authentic and immersive manner. We'd like to once again thank you for your participation today. Stay tuned with us, and we've got a power-packed set of conversations lying ahead for you. And of course, our MC will take you forward on that journey. That was I, Arjun Vishwanathan, once again, Chief Research Officer at Strategic. Thank you. Stay safe. God bless.
Thank you very much, Arjun, for taking us through that very informative session and setting the tone for today. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's now move forward to our next session, which is the discussion on Business Resilience Masterclass. And to take us through the same, I'd like to welcome Mr. Amit Dhawan, CISO and DPO, BirlaSoft, who's going to be in conversation with Mr. Vikas Yadav, CISO, Nykaa, Ms. Mansi Thapar, who's an eminent CISO and thought leader. Do witness these amazing parts of the masterclass with Mr. Amit Dhawan. Over to you, Amit.
Hi, good day, everybody, and welcome to Business Resiliency Masterclass, Decoding Business Resilience. In the next 45 minutes, 1 hour or so, uh, we'll be talking about the recent, or rather, the importance of business resiliency in the recent turn of events, which is COVID and the additional change in technology landscape that we have seen, the rapid increase and change in technology landscape that we've seen. The pandemic has brought the economic activities to almost a halt. The governments had put a lot of restrictions. There were lockdowns all across the world. They are now slowly easing out. Enterprises faced a lot of challenges on business continuity. With COVID happening, the sudden lockdown, organizations were not ready, and people started working from home. A lot of businesses had to shut down. A lot of businesses faced issues of business continuity and were not able to sustain. This actually led to reduced operating margins for those businesses which survived. The supply chains were disrupted. At a country level, if you see the projections with GDP, they all went down. The stock markets crashed. And the businesses that continued faced the challenge of engaging remote workforces. On a lighter note, I tell this to a lot of people. I used to manage 8 to 10 offices before the crisis took us on. And then after this crisis, we suddenly had more than 10,000 offices. And that is the case with everybody. So how did we get over this? It's a human nature to fight over crisis. The business resiliency was part of that. But how do businesses become resilient is what we are talking about here. A resilient business in technology landscape actually help businesses navigate through the crisis, the complexities, and they help in reducing the operational cost and increasing the operational efficiency. IT has played a massive role in this transition that we have seen, and modernization and reconfiguration of IT uh, was required, was done, and that brought agility. Uh, it optimized revenues. It settled down over a period of time, but people learned new ways of working. IT, in fact, has become a key component of the revival of the business resiliency strategy. What's the need for proactive business resilience? If you see the recent trends and a lot of surveys, India actually tops the ransomware attack globally. Uh, about 70% of the organizations that were surveyed showed that they were attacked by ransomware. And out of these set, about 90% of companies said that they paid ransom and were not able to recover the data. Now, if you've seen the modus operandi of how the hackers have been operating, earlier they were happy to disrupt the business. Uh, then started the chaos of ransomware. And now the data breach has become more important. So the hackers are able to sit inside your system uh, for a long, long time and extract all the data and then blackmail you on the data. It has become much worse that these hackers are now sending the data of your customers to the customers saying that this company has been breached. And worst among all these things is the last thing that you see, increased targeting of mobile devices and remote workers. So people were at home, the Wi-Fi controls weren't good enough, the endpoint controls weren't good enough. And to top it off, hackers recently have started saying that they are happy to pay money to people just to click on links, which is sad. And it increases need of business resilience. So how to build a cyber resiliency strategy? What I advise, uh, you know, cyber resiliency strategy is nothing but a all-encompassing strategy that includes a lot of standards, guidelines, best practices, people, process, and technology, governance mechanism, and services. And one of the best framework, that I'm really fond of, and actually fits the bill. It has components of being technical. It has components of being non-technical. It's a holistic framework, and it can be tweaked to every company's requirement, which is the NIST cybersecurity framework. The recent version is, I think, 1.1. You can go to this site. You can download this. One of the core of this is, you know, it is changing the way we used to look at cybersecurity. Earlier, the focus was just to start defending, whatever you have protected, start putting controls around. Now that is changing. This framework has changed that concept. You know, it does not say protect whatever you have. It says first look at, uh, you know, what risk the organization faces. Identify your systems, identify your assets, identify your capability. Then, build minimalistic controls to protect them, and then start detecting. Now, detection is focused as the highest point here. And first you detect, then you build controls around it, and then it obviously goes into the standard process of first responding to the inappropriate activities that are happening, creating a capability around responding. In fact, creating a transition from detecting, that is occurrence of a security alert or an event, and then transitioning into how to respond to it. The first aim is to protect. Typically in a house, when a house, for example, and I'm not suggesting that, but when a house catches fire, what do? First, you take out your important assets. First, you try to, protect whatever you can. You save whatever you can, and then you try to, fight it and then recover from. So this is exactly what we are trying to do here. Fight the fire first, and then recover. Moving further, uh, what are the implementation challenges and the success factors? Now, this is my perception of how you can implement this, and I'm not talking of the standard here. I'm talking of implementing any particular standard or a framework, and this is based on my experience. Uh, the first is understanding the regulatory and the assurance requirements, and these two are very very distinct but uh, very very important things. These days the compliance and certifications to some things is very very different from security assurance. So though there are some regulatory requirements, and the NIST cybersecurity framework built in US, it's a public-private relationship that built this standard, has been made mandatory for certain organizations, but it is still a voluntary standard, non-certifiable standard. So the first step is understanding what are the regulatory requirements for a particular company in a particular geography, understanding what are the assurance requirements. How do you assure that the risks are maintained? The second step is to understand the business processes, very very specific to data lifecycle. These days, bringing the firewalls down or bringing the servers down is no longer the game. It is how the data is moving. How do you protect your data? Data breach, as I mentioned in the previous slide, is one of the most important. Then you need to understand what are the interested party obligations. So there are customers which are involved, they have their data. You are feeding data into your vendors for as your third party for helping you out in a lot of activities. You have a certain reputation, you have board to protect. So you need to understand what are your third party obligations and meet them. Then the next step comes up is driving change. Now, this change is yes, technical, definitely technical, but a lot of it is a cultural change. And we'll talk about those risks which the NIST cybersecurity framework brings. The next most important thing is collaboration among internal functions. In an IT services company or any organization that we look at, there are at least 7 to 8 functions. Your IT, infosec are anyway there. There is a privacy function, there is legal, there is internal audit, there is HR, there is finance, there is a secretarial function. So all these functions are very very important, and they are using your data. They are using the data of the customers or of your partners, uh, and it is important to protect these assets. So collaboration amongst these internal functions is a must. That game of taking approvals, uh, you know getting approvals done, you know those days are over, in my opinion. We need to quickly move on to the game that yes, it's a collaborative effort from the whole company. And then the next part is demonstrating resilience, assurance, and compliance. Now once that is done, you can look at the effectiveness of these controls. Some basic controls come in. So 6 and 7 can be swappable. You can take 7 to 6 and then come back to 7, but they are swappable. You have to build effective controls, uh, and ensure that these are met. And the next part is the resources. So needless to say, the people have to be understandable, capable enough to manage these. Moving forward, how do you measure cybersecurity posture and maturity? So this cybersecurity framework in the implementation part talks about how an organization is structured on this. So it has created 4 tiers. That is a maturity matrix for an organization. So the first one is partial, where the organization is not bothered. There is no security structure at all. It is ad hoc. It is not formalized. The next is risk informed. So basically, yes, there is little awareness. You've created some policies around this, but it is not effective. Repeatable is something where you have a process, your people, process, technology exists, it is being measured, but a lot of that stuff is manual. Excel being used, automation tools not being used, etc. And the last tier is adaptable. Out of 108 controls which are there, uh, it is prudent for an organization to be under any tier, but adaptable is best where the controls are automated. However, The NIST security framework does not mandate where an organization should fit in. Obviously, it should never sit in tier one, but it leaves it to the organization to decide whether it should sit in tier one, two, three, or four. My advice is that most of the organizations, or rather every organization, should be sitting between three and four. One is an absolute no in this today's world. Two, not having policies and not implementing them does not make too much of sense. But some things can be in two, but 95 to 100% control should be in three and four. And it also talks about the risk management process. The initial part is that there is an ad hoc practice of risk measurement, and then it slowly keeps getting embedded into this. Moving further, let us come to the implementations of the NIST cybersecurity frame. Now, if you go to this website, nist.gov, if I'm correct, in the framework, it gives, I think, 6 verticals that you can relate to. It's federal, it is manufacturing, it is critical infrastructure. So you can go to any one of them, and it talks about in detail what should be implemented and what should not be implemented. The NIST cybersecurity framework actually has its genesis on the controls list of SP 853. So that gives I think about 1,400 odd controls, and they are spread between technical as well as governance side. So though it does not mandate out of these 108 controls, but you can take a reference from that and implement controls. So let us see some of these controls which are required in BFSI and how it is met. The common threads that you see in a BFSI organization, there's a large scale anti-fraud bypass. So criminals are looking ways to defeat the anti-fraud safeguards that have been done. Uh, faking fingerprints, uh, and trying to steal biometric data, basically trying to bypass the fraud things that you have. The second is ATM malware. I hope everybody remembers the Cosmos Bank hack, which happened last year when the ATM switch was manipulated, and any request which was going from the teller machines was not actually going to the bank. It was being stopped at the switch itself, and it was the ATM switch, and it was automatically programmed to give out money. There are account-centric frauds, looking at sensitive accounts, stealing passwords. Phishing is these days every organization has reported increase in phishing by almost 300-400%. Identity theft is something that is really gaining ground. Uh, it is becoming so difficult to manage identity. People, there are a lot of mitigation strategies coming up, but identifying that, realizing that this is a threat, this is a big threat, and can cause a lot of damage to the organization is very, very important. Uh, you know, if you can read here, if it says when a data breach occurs, the data of the customers are sold by cyber criminals to use in order to get credit information. So this need not be a directly related thing, but an indirectly related thing. Once the data is stolen, it could be used for this purpose. Threat for employees. I spoke earlier. People are being paid bribe to click on the ransomware or on the files that they receive on emails. The security culture is very, very important from a perspective of users knowing exactly what they need. Now, how do you mitigate them? It is assess, test, assess, test, assess, test. So, assess your cloud security, monitor your, controls. Unless you test yourself, unless you actually come down to a place where you say that, yes, I still, though I'm putting in so much of effort, I still need to measure it. I still need to test how effective I am. So that needs to be done. Very, very strict identity and access management policies. Huge amount of awareness. Disaster recovery plan. Cloud has one biggest issue on the change of mindset. So encryption of data is one of the biggest strategy that people should follow. So primarily, when I look at the overall strategies, I would advise three things. One is keep testing yourself. Never rest in peace that things are okay. Second, encrypt. And third, have very strong disaster recovery plan and identity access management resolution plans. We will now move to the next vertical, e-commerce. So we just finished the implementation, or rather understanding the NIST cybersecurity framework as one of the framework that can be leveraged for implementing cyber resiliency to enable business resilience. We then saw the implementation of the same thing. What are the cyber threats and what are the mitigation strategies in the BFSI sector? Let's move on to another very interesting sector, which is really coming up uh, worldwide. Uh, in fact, a lot of companies which were doing their own manufacturing are moving on to the e-commerce space for ease of business, reachability, and the technology is enabling this activity. So I have a very dear friend, Vikas Yadav, whom I know for many years, one of the most knowledgeable and respected figures that I've seen in cybersecurity, and a very close friend. Hi, Vikas. Welcome.
Hi, Amit. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, Vikas, let us talk about we heard the discussions around the NIST cybersecurity framework and the features that it provides. Can we hear from you what are the threats and what are the mitigation strategies you have in this space?
Thanks, Amit. I think, firstly, sincere thanks to Strategic Inc. and you to allow me this opportunity to share my thoughts. I think the good part about NIST cybersecurity framework is that it can be transposed and implemented across various sectors. So we also use the same NIST cybersecurity framework, and we've been using it to implement cybersecurity in our organization. And e-commerce is a very dynamic and uh, always agile and moving environment. You have most of the e-commerce firms being cloud native, digitally native companies, which where is a constant part of your I'll say DNA, and we love to constantly innovate, adapt, and also keep changing as per consumer requirements. So this whole environment makes it very imperative to have a strong framework in place. And I think that this cybersecurity framework helps you to set a strong foundation for cybersecurity. Now, why do we need it? Because as with other sectors, there are a lot of cyber threats which we face. So some of them are shown on the slide. I think some of them are common across various sectors, and some are specific to e-commerce, wherein we feel specifically that e-commerce sector might see certain threats more often. Now, one thing to realize is that the e-commerce sector is very fluent. You keep rapidly changing your website as per the demands of customers or as per the demands of the users and also the brand partners who want various changes to adapt to the growing technology. As also, you have a lot of new competitors, and you also have online other stores coming up, which also give you various features. Now, you need to constantly adapt. When you constantly adapt and change, you expose yourself to certain threats, and because you are in a B2C market, generally e-commerce does face a lot of cyber threats, which are more direct and more impactful than other sectors, maybe say manufacturing or finance and other aspects. So you have to be a little more agile in that respect. So I think one of the first threats is financial frauds. How it differs from the conventional sector is that here the frauds are more direct and more, I'll say the turnaround time is much faster. The most common being the example of usage of stolen credit cards, wherein you need to have a strong risk mechanism to mitigate it. You also have a lot of frauds related to ability to, I will say, adapt or exploit any weaknesses which you may have in the code or the application which you have. Think things like you could, if you could order an item with maybe if try and implement let's say two payment methods you're using, and if you can use a business logic where you could just use a simple and or statement and try and order something with without paying any amount or a minimal amount, or you could generate a refund wherein you could not you could get the refund and still the item could come. Now these aspects have to be built in by a strong secure SDLC cycle, whereas you, even though your releases may be going very fast, but still you at least ensure that you have a strong set of e-commerce use cases which you check when the application is getting developed. So it's very important, imperative to do that. These are some examples which I gave you. You also need to have also a quick turnaround to ensure that when who's ordering and what kind of orders which are coming in, are they genuine customers or they are shop owners which are trying to hoard the stuff. So it's very essential to be understand this, and therefore you need to create risk matrices and also understand your logical flow of your business which is there. So financial fraud is always, I think, there. There have been stronger mechanisms, and with the deluge of payment methods available, the customers have a lot of choice. But also with choice comes the risk factor as well. So you also have fake websites coming in. So now phishing to customers, both in terms of emails and also fake and fraudulent websites coming up, is also a big challenge. So I just correlated with the fact that, let's say, when you say identify in NIST framework, what you mean to say is that you need to not only identify your assets, you also need to identify your external attack surface, and also need to be able to detect any fraudulent or fake websites which are coming up. So that means you need to scan the internet landscape on a continuous basis to understand that, yes, is there any new fake website which is being used to defraud your customers? Maybe trying to give some better discount, or try to lure your customers to share their usernames and passwords across various sites. So now this is obviously mitigated by ensuring brand protection in terms of having sites having a regular monitoring solutions which can detect fake websites. Also ensuring that your customers are made aware of any phishing or likely emails which may be coming up, and also building clear mechanisms of payment and ensuring that you tell your customers that your only payment you take is through your own website and not through any other means which is there. So I think phishing is across sectors. It is just that the context changes, and therefore ensuring that your own um, external attack surface is monitored regularly is a very essential factor, I think, to protect against phishing, financial frauds, or meet any other cyber threat. Coming to the third point, I think denial of service, distributed denial of service is obviously a very important aspect which is there, a threat which you have to tackle, both from availability perspective. That means every minute of your time which an e-commerce site is not available, you're losing revenue and you're losing profits. So therefore, it's essential that you uh, maintain that your website is up and running. You are maintaining a strong sense of control and strong sense of protection measures against DDoS attacks. Now, this could be done in multiple ways. You could have layer 4 DDoS support with your internet service provider, as well as your maybe the cloud provider which you have. It could also be at a layer 7, wherein you have a web application firewall, which you could put rate limiting on and selective controls on various APIs. You could also have your own infrastructure with, like, I think that is why most companies work on the cloud, because you could also ensure that your environment is scaling up well. That means right through the chain of your whole infrastructure, be it the application, the ALB or the application load balancers, be it your core web servers, be it your databases. Everyone should be able to scale up as per the demand. And also you should have mechanisms to detect when there is an actual surge in traffic and when there is a layer 7 or an application level DDoS attack. Now you'll always have scamsters trying to put in, let's say, simple attacks like account takeovers. That means they will get usernames and credentials through various open open databases available. Now you may say that Is it the e-commerce site's responsibility? But what happens is that because I think most consumers, and in fact some of us also do, share passwords across sites, what happens is that this customer's username and password may be same across multiple sites, and if it is compromised in one, he could use the same at your level. So now I think most e-commerce sites are actually transitioning from your conventional email and username and password uh, to login based or phone number and OTP based authentication. I think that is one very important way we have countered DDoS attacks. And also you have various logins and API rate limiting across various APIs as well. Then I think this is not so effective if you are a matured site, but yes, e-commerce does face the threat that when let's say a new player comes in and adopts a standard CMS like Magento or Drupal or Shopify, if you have a standard content management system or an e-commerce store which you adopt and you don't customize it or secure it, you'll have applications or known applications suffering from known vulnerabilities. Like I think one of the most used and most exploited platform is WordPress. I think even though it is most widely used, the number of issues which you find in WordPress are phenomenal. I think the same way e-commerce sites also, I think, face conventional issues. But I think what you need to do is that either firstly you need to ensure that you use the latest version. Even if you customize it, you keep upgrading it. And also, if you're not patching it, you should have a compensatory control like a WAF or a web application, that is a web application firewall sitting in front, so that you can at least mitigate standard attacks like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, which can be easily mitigated by having a WAF in front. So I think a constant rhythm of vulnerability management helps in mitigation of the known vulnerabilities as well. A last point, I think, which is the challenge for every, I think, not only e-commerce or any online presence is bots. I think you will have both good bots, bad bots, but there is a strong dependence on good bots which help you raise your search engine optimization rankings. But you also have a lot of malicious bots which will try and scrape your website or attack your website through various concentrated attacks on various APIs and all. So I think a good strategy to have a well-built code and well-built application coupled with rate limiting on APIs and also investing for a good bot management solution is something by which you can protect your application or an e-commerce store online. I think to summarize, if you go by the NIST framework and you identify your critical assets on cloud and know your external attack surface, that's the first step. Then you should be able to protect by ensuring that you have strong authentication and also key protection solutions like WAF, and also regular vulnerability management. Then having a detection mechanism of ensuring that you detect any changes in the code or any attacks which may be occurring to you, have a strong SIEM and a SOC solution in place. Then finally, also having the ability to respond and recover by carrying out regular drills and also ensuring that you have a strong mechanism to respond to incidents when they occur. And even when in case you are affected at the infra level, you also have a mechanism to recover quickly, and that should be done both by having backups and also by having a regular mechanism to test those backups. So I think I have covered the main aspects from a pure e-commerce perspective of an online store. But I think the same challenges of IT and infra and third-party application vendors are also something which needs to be addressed across platforms. And I think at least I think to say is that third-party vendor and supply chain risks I think remain across all applications.
Absolutely.
You can't really do everything in-house. So I think that is also one way, one serious area which we need to look at. But NIST surely does provide a strong framework to implement cybersecurity in an e-commerce environment, and we also using it extensively.
Thanks a lot, because this was really very good. I'll just add, my thoughts on this. I think the e-commerce platforms, they are not primarily business. I think it is the impact of a compromise of an e-commerce platform will have a wider socio-economic issue. It is you're a provider, you're a collaborator for, and you're a connector between the people who are supplying the goods and people who are buying it, and puts a lot of obligation on your platform to do well and stay safe in business, to ensure that your vendors, your supply chain is also not impacted. So that's a I have always thought e-commerce is good, but I think after talking to you today, is critical. But after talking to you today, I think it is as critical as BFSI, if not more. And you really have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders to ensure that this thing runs. I think a lot of things you mentioned about, but I'll just like to point out some more thing on the financial fraud part of it. I think in India, there is a lot of regulatory thing around the use of credit cards, that CVV number and an OTP driven thing. It is very tough outside where a lot of these things are not used. So I'm glad that you could cover everything in just simple terms. Really, thank you, Vikas. It was very insightful and fantastic. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Amit. Thanks for the opportunity as well.
So now we come to another industry vertical, manufacturing. We spoke about the implementation of the NIST cybersecurity framework in multiple verticals, and we covered the BFSI one. Uh, for covering manufacturing, I have a veteran cybersecurity leader, Mansi Thapar, with me. Hi, Mansi, how are you?
Hi, Amit. It's a pleasure.
So Mansi, is a veteran leader. She's a thought leader and has been in the manufacturing domain for a very long time. So Mansi, you recollect we discussed the implementation of NIST cybersecurity framework in multiple things. So how do you leverage work in the manufacturing domain?
Yeah, Amit, and hello to everybody and who's watching us. So yes, Amit, I think manufacturing is like very different where from e-commerce and BFSI, which we discussed earlier. Here, the main challenge before implementing anything is that is security important? That is something which really takes forward. So there is one thing which comes from any frameworks which we want is that all frameworks talk about that you need to have a management buy-in to start anything, right? So that is something which first comes into my mind, that is the first and foremost thing. Get the management buy-in, get security into the fabric of the organization. Let them first understand what security is all about rather than just going ahead and saying that we want to implement a framework. In manufacturing, that is very important because see, at the end of the day, we need to understand they are very different people. Most of them are working on shop floors. They are not so tech savvy. They are mainly data entry operators. But yes, at the same time, security is now very important because of digitalization and the OT and the IoT networks, which are really the breathing thing for manufacturing also these days. So I would say that is how we have really tried to bring in the frameworks, be it ISO 27001, be it NIST framework or any other frameworks. But yes, one is it has to flow from the top. That is something which we have really worked on. Second, yes, as some of the panelists rightly said earlier also, that we really need to work on user awareness. And as I said, as they're not tech savvy, it cannot be only, online digital videos or something like that, which we are doing. It has to be very innovative. So where manufacturing is concerned, we took a lot of initiatives, especially in their, languages, because like if factories are in different geographic locations, we need to make sure that they understand. So it was not only in English, we also, made sure that it was in different languages. Second, we tried to inbuild the family culture into the cybersecurity thing, so that when you talk to someone who understands that yes, I want to secure my daughter and my kid who are now on online. Now the same thing is now with your organization. That is what we have inbuilt. Third was we implemented it with HR as well. That it is mandatory for everybody to do. If they can't do it digitally, we arrange some kind of handbooks and some shop floor trainings which were conducted so that they at least understand what security is all about and where do they stand. That that understanding that it is not something which only a cybersecurity or IT person needs to take care. As an organization on a whole, we all need to take care of it. Second, as you can see in the slide as well, Ransomware is something which, because in manufacturing, see, it's not banking, that not directly hit, that if my data is breached, they can get my millions of dollars out. But yes, at the same time, for a manufacturing setup, their brand value, their the business continuity of their machines, of their critical infrastructure, is something which is very important. And if that goes for a toss, you can imagine, right? For in a day, if the production goes down, they can lose like crores of rupees. So that is something which you really need to look at, that how we are ensuring that ransomware kind of attacks, your phishing attacks, how are we ensuring that those are protected. Then again, it is all mix of people, process, and technology, that how we are building that up in manufacturing. But yes, for manufacturing per se, I would say now endpoint security, as it's with everybody else. But yes, manufacturing, because see, again, we need to understand, we move from zero work from home policy to 100% work from home policy, right, Amit? And it was not something very normal, which maybe in Birla Stop it was very normal. Okay, I'm working from home. So in 4 days to get that implemented, and then to now, it's a new normal. Now the management also feels that work can happen, people can be at home and still function, and our sales can go up. So that there's a mind shift which has come now, which is great for everybody. But yes, at the same time, the challenges have increased, because we have not designed our security in that way that it can be done work from home. So I would say anyone who's now preparing for manufacturing, they should now think in a different way. They should feel that just work anywhere concept should be inbuilt, even if it's not there yet in your manufacturing setups, and you have started work as normal, everybody's coming to office. Still, if you are building that strategy, try to build that strategy in your security, this thing, that it can happen that everybody is working from home. Thirdly, yes, IoT is something which is very important where manufacturing is concerned, which we call the OT network. Like, for me, if my supply chain goes down, which is highly connected with OT and IoT, because there are GPS enabled devices, there are CCTV cameras which are giving me feeds, there's video surveillance, which tells me that okay, if there are 5 people in a place where they should not be, then the alert goes out. So these kind of things are really supporting the teams. Now, if someone or something goes wrong here, if there's an attack there, then again, as I said, there'll be crores of losses, right? So some that is something we should really look at in manufacturing, that how are we securing our supply chains digitally? Because now I think most of the manufacturing companies are also coming up with e-commerce sites. So as my fellow panelists had given, good tips there, so I think they can pick up from there as well, that how an e-commerce needs to be set up. Fourth is, yes, which is most important, I would say, where manufacturing is concerned, is their IP. Because see, IP is something which we need to protect. And sometimes what happens is that you are trying to secure everything, and the main systems or the main people get, neglected. So I would say in manufacturing setup, please first identify your crown jewels which are there. Try to protect them first. Maybe your costing departments, your R&D departments, your design teams which are working on the product, which is your bread and butter. Because at the end of the day, in manufacturing, the product is the bread and butter, not IT. So IT is an enabler. So first we need to see how we are, protecting that. That is very important. That IP is something which we really need to look at. And yes, fifth is that have a dedicated, security expert, which is very new to manufacturing setups, which I am glad that, in the company I have worked in or I am working in, they have that visibility that security is very important. So have a senior person in place, especially now with the privacy thing coming in, because there'll be a lot of PDP coming in, because even if you are not working on European or American geographies, but there are other things. So at least you might hire a privacy person, but a security expert is needed to support that person if that role is a dual role. So that is very important, that have someone and who have a dotted line to the board, so that this is something when manufacturing company need to evolve, because they feel that it is an IT function. But yes, I would say that overall they should know that over, even if it is an IT function, but that reporting to the board taking initiatives across the the department is very important. So that is what I feel, Amit.
No, so these are fantastic thoughts, Mansi. Really appreciate this. I'll add on few things to this, and I'll start with your last comment, where you spoke about the board getting involved. I think the boards globally are waking up to the risk and the cyber threats, and all of them that I am, that I'm aware of, are really putting a lot of attention in these areas. Now, just to add on and correct me, I have seen few cases, something, like Chayos, that brand of tea. They start their operations at 7 in the morning, and when I go after my run and I ask for a cup of tea at 6:55, they cannot give me tea. So their machines, which make tea, as simple as making tea, is connected to their servers. Okay, and they start operations sharp at 7. And I'll give you another example. I had the fortune of auditing one pharmaceutical company a couple of years back, and the mass manufacturing machine uh, was on a Windows XP machine. The controller was on a Windows XP computer, which was connected to the internet, not patched, no endpoint control. Now, with these two kind of scenarios that I'm talking about, if the servers get attacked, if the endpoints get attacked, that will be a real nightmare. The ratios of the medicines can be changed, and that can have a very serious impact on the health of people. Uh, as simple as the Chayos machines, and there are many more brands. There are cycle vendors, and there are e vendors, and the electric vehicles that are coming. So there are huge amount of threats in this. Uh, any thoughts, Mansi, on uh, the? I think the importance is there, but these are very very typical use cases in the manufacturing area. Uh,
Yeah,
any comments?
yeah, Amit. So I think you are absolutely right. I am facing the similar challenge that there are big robotic machines which are still connected on Windows 2003 or XP machines. I have seen it somewhere. So I think, and
So,
this,
so I'll just interject. Uh, I think 2 years back, the robotic machine caused the first death in Germany due to hacking. So I think that creates a huge more importance. Sorry, back to you.
yeah,
I just wanted to highlight that it is a very very crucial area.
yeah. And the company say that we can't have any downtimes for you to upgrade it, and with, but then I think again it is the security fabric which you need to ensure. Like if you tell them, okay, you're not allowing me 1 day's downtime, and if it goes down it'll take you 7 days. So now the decision is with the management, what do you want to do? So 90% of the time things get done. So that is what I would say, that at least keep on sharing it, keep on sharing to the board whichever risk is there. And at the end of the day, that this is how we need to mitigate it, and you will have some wins, I guess.
I think the most important thing you rightly mentioned is security culture. That third point that you have
Yeah,
read for employees, that is very very crucial. And to mitigate all these attacks, this culture is required. I have a cartoon in my organization that I present during bigger town halls, and that's something which I picked up from the internet. It's a boxing cage, and it says, and on one side of the cage there are a lot of appliances and devices stacked. The firewall, IPS,
mhm,
yes, the whole lot of things. And on the other side, there is a guy called John or somebody, and it says that on one side you have all these guys, and on the second side is John. And nothing against that name,
yeah,
nobody should take an offense in the audience. I'm sorry, I'm just, it could be, I can call it Amit. So Amit
yeah,
Dhawan, to be more specific. So on one side you have all these controls, and on one side is Amit Dhawan. And if Amit Dhawan screws up, the organization goes for a toss. So culture is the most important thing that we have.
yeah,
And it is very difficult to build that culture. And hats off to you, Mansi, to stay in that manufacturing department, where manufacturing a domain where it is one of the least important things. It used to be, at least for till a couple of years back. But I'm glad to hear that it is changing and improving.
yeah, it is definitely.
So thanks a lot, Mansi, for being here. I really appreciate. and a very interesting conversation. Thank
Thank you, Amit. Thank you so much. My pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vikas, Mansi, and Amit for that insightful and engaging session. I'm sure all of us will cherish the input shared by all three of you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we now move forward to our next session, which is on innovative data protection for multi-cloud workloads. And to take us through this, I'd like to welcome Mr. Dipu Bajwa, Director and General Manager, Data Protection Solutions for Dell Technologies. Over to you, Ripu.
Hello everyone and welcome to the session. I am Ripu Bajwa, Director and General Manager for Data Protection Solutions at Dell Technologies India. Today we're going to talk about innovative data protection for multi-cloud workloads. I'm sure you will all agree that data has become the most invaluable asset today. All our customers and you especially are looking at cloud and multi-cloud environments for protection and management of your information assets and the valuable data sets. Effective and proven data protection solutions have proven that you can actually do more with less. You can manage your investments in the cloud much more effectively. As you scale for more elasticity, more agility, faster time to market, as well as getting more in less, you need to have the control over the data as well. So let's begin with what have been the drivers for multi-cloud. We have seen with increasing digital distributed workforce, our customers, our suppliers, our partner ecosystems, and overall, our entire landscape has increased dramatically. Add to it the fact that development of IT and the transformation IT has to go hand in hand. We've looked at embracing the multi-cloud in a bigger way. And finally, with the emergence of new technologies and the ability to access data from anywhere and be able to churn the data and get actionable insights out of them, one has to embrace the multi-cloud. And we have seen this happening across the board. If you really look at it, cloud has been one of the biggest disruptive technologies in the modern decade. And most of the organizations have gone beyond one cloud today for the simple reason that as you look at best environment or the best operating model for a particular workload, you would like to use a particular environment for that. And organizations are increasingly finding that with more cloud providers, there's additional competitive advantage they get as well as productive gains. However, with increasing number of players and there is competitiveness in them to offer new services, there is an inherent set of challenges which are coming on the customer's end. First, there is portability, moving your data from on-prem to off-prem and that to multi-cloud environment, being able to have the access and the control always. Consistent management. One was used to having everything at their fingertips or at their controls, and now it is in different operating environments outside your perimeter or your data center, which adds to the fact that we just not need to have consistent management experience, but also look after all the governance and the compliance standards which are coming in place. Add to it fact that modern data protection workloads today demand a lot from the infrastructure, and one cannot depend upon the old way of doing backups and recovery and being able to match the current standards or the SLAs. The fact remains you have to do more in less, which means less budgets and there is more pressure to manage the workloads, which means the economics of cloud. How do we really protect, manage, automate in less? So the power of cloud, which is there, also has its own challenges. And how are we helping our customers integrate these multi-cloud environment? We are doing that by bringing it together, making sure that more use cases are available to customers. Firstly, we are helping them look at multi-cloud environments, retaining more data in the cloud, which means more capacity from long-term retention perspective, replicating to cloud for more use cases like disaster recovery, making sure that cloud is used effectively for backup copies in a very efficient manner, and also what are the workloads which are born in cloud? Can we protect them in the same manner or not? It all these many use cases also demand that the architecture has to be more modern, more cloud ready. And this we are delivering through our proven technologies like data mobility, which means moving very efficiently the data from the client side using very efficient data deduplication technologies so that you're storing less and definitely being able to move less data across your network. So you're saving on costs. Add to it, the fact remains that today you move to cloud for automation, for more easy access and the scale at which you want to do your operations. So having that as a key feature as part of your orchestration tool is a must. So your cloud-ready architecture for modern data protection is going to be a differentiator for you as you consume differential services from these multi-cloud players. This gives the fact that as Dell EMC, we are able to protect very efficiently with multiple use cases in a multi-cloud environment. How do we deliver this? Let's start with first, long-term retention. We help data move from your on-premise in a most efficient manner to any cloud of your choice. And not just that, we help you be there for a long period of time, scale as efficiently, and also be able to keep more in less money. Which means today I am able to serve my customers, I am able to get more out of my cloud investments and be able to interoperate. And how do we do the interoperation between the multiple clouds is very, very important and a key differentiator. As we automate more, we have seen through a study that organizations have found that 57% of the projects have moved ahead of schedule. Not just that, it has also minimized their exposure to security vulnerabilities. It has been able to guarantee error-proof deployment of their services in a very predictable manner, ensuring reliable workflows, as well as maintaining the organization's ability. All of this with the economics of cloud, saving time, saving money. And how do we do this today in a differential way? We are building all the technologies that we have helped our customers with on-premise to be available on multi-cloud. Technologies such as making sure your policies are protected in a very seamless manner. Across the organization, there is a proper governance between the keys, the data management, tagging the right policies to the workloads, making sure they are available, and also bringing in the self-service approach to your data management layer. Not just that, we are also helping organizations move their entire information assets to be backed up on a SaaS model, which means looking at SaaS applications, be it M365, SFDC, Google Workspace, and also moving towards endpoints and hybrid cloud workloads. All of this through leased infrastructure to be deployed, managing it all in a self-service model. Given the fact that today you are looking at multi-clouds and you're looking at modern workloads, for example, you're looking at Kubernetes clusters across Amazon, Azure, and Google Kubernetes engines. There's no better way to manage between the three than having a very powerful data protection management layer like a PowerProtect Data Manager, which will have a very efficient and strong engine, very reliable engine in a software-defined manner sitting across all these three clusters, which is coming through the Data Domain Virtual Edition. And how we help that is through the effective deployment of these clusters from an orchestration point of view, so that now you can have the control of your data as you operate between cloud environments. And that's a unique differentiator because now you are able to leverage each of those clouds, each of those services efficiently. Finally, as I said, with the SaaS model, our ability to protect data in a very simple, zero infrastructure cost, ensuring multi-tenancy and scalability, like the way you are doing at the enterprise grade, is available. It can start as simple as the least possible number of users that you have to scaling to the highest possible users, the endpoints that you can look at. All of this through a very simple SKU of licensing, which will take all these use cases. You don't have to look at multiple environments, multiple infrastructure to be deployed. Very simple to use, have a single SKU, and can cater to all the use cases. Finally, why multi-cloud data protection with Dell? We have proven ourselves with our partnerships with more than 1,200 customers in cloud. More than 5.8 exabytes of data is being protected in cloud using Dell Technologies software infrastructure. We have optimized the enterprise workload for protection, which means today whatever you're doing on-prem in your control, you will have the same with multiple cloud providers that you are looking at. And ability to extend the data on-premise to cloud. This is what we are delivering with our customers and helping them embrace multi-cloud much more efficiently so that their cloud economics works to their advantage. Finally, if you really look at one place where you can look at integration of all of multi-cloud environments using data protection and management, this is what Dell Data Protection is helping our customers with. We would be very happy to talk more on this along with sessions during the Dell Technologies. Happy to be connected with you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ripu, for sharing an amazing presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now take a sneak peek into the VMware Carbon Black, securing endpoints and workloads. To take us through this, I'd like to welcome Ms. Neha Dhyani, CISSP, CCSP, Senior Solutions Engineer for VMware Carbon Black. Over to you, Neha.
Very warm welcome to all the participants. And today we already saw that, the insightful discussion by Indrajit that, he spoke about some of, how the attack surface is increasing and the importance on the technologies like EDR and XDR will cover up. So today I'm going to talk about, how VMware Carbon Black can solve most of these problems when it comes to endpoint security. So with that, let me just quickly come to the agenda. And the agenda that I have kept for today, very few slides I will say that, which talks about the approach when it comes to Carbon Black Cloud, strength and capability when it comes to the EDR solution from Carbon Black. I would say interactive demo, which will give you a quick glimpse into the capabilities, feature sets on how you can, leverage this tool in ensuring that, your endpoints are prevented, as well as you have complete visibility from a EDR perspective. And then we'll open the session for Q&A as well. So with that, let me just, before I proceed further, let me talk about our approach when it comes to securing endpoints and workload. And within VMware Carbon Black, which I would say, is one of the pioneer when it comes to endpoint security, our approach is built on 3 core pillars. So before we go ahead and say that, we prevent this particular malware and this particular threat within your environment, the first and the foremost task is to identify the risk within your environment. All the 3 core pillars that you see out here, risk identification, prevention, detect, and response, correlates back to, the different modules that we have within Carbon Black. Then the first core pillar is around risk identification, which talks about that, before you prevent anything, you need to have a visibility into the baseline inventory that you have within your organization. And then the next task is that, look for the vulnerability, look for any insecure configuration. As simple as, if I have to give you examples, look for, if there are any hosts, which have got RDP enabled, any host, which have got host firewall turned off. Are there any systems, which have got blank passwords enabled? Are there any systems, which have got cron jobs enabled? Or, there could be multiple such, I would say, security related pre-built queries which are built in within the Carbon Black platforms that really gives you a quick visibility into your IT hygiene and security posture, basis which what you can do is, you quickly get into the visibility mode, and then you can move into the hardening and then reduce the attack surface within your environment. Now, after you have got the visibility, you can definitely go ahead and, harden your assets. The next step, the next core pillar is the prevent cycle. The prevent cycle, after you have identified the risk, of course, you'll harden your assets. Prevention within Carbon Black, I would say, is dual focused. That means we not just, prevent the known malware, rather we focus on the non-malware kind of attacks or living of the land kind of attacks. Now, Indrajit clearly spoke about, some of the latest attacks that you would have seen, Kaseya, Colonial Pipeline. Sometime back, you heard about, the Sunburst attack as well. If you notice, some of these attacks have been focused on, I would say, the non-malware kind of attacks. I would say the fileless kind of attacks, which are being used, or I would say, which are being used by adversaries to exploit the known trusted application within your organization. Something I would say like PowerShell, WMI. Now, how do we make sure that, when the attackers are, making use the trusted tool within our organization, how do we, go ahead and, prevent these kind of attacks? That's where, the behavioral prevention comes into picture. And for the attacks that evade these prevent cycle, the next step is of course to detect and respond these kind of attacks. Now, as per one of the very recent report from IBM, it was realized that it takes 108 days before even an organization is aware that it is under attack. Now, with Carbon Black Cloud, we really reduce that dwell times to minutes and hours, and that is something, the power of, I would say, the early and accurate detection. Idea is that how can I cut down the noise, look into the zoom in and zoom out kind of a view, so that I understand that how this attack originated within my environment. Do I have a complete visibility so that I understand the complete attack campaign, how this literal movement started within my organization. And once I have this zoom in and zoom out kind of visibility, the next step of course is to perform the remediation. And the remediation within Carbon Black, I would say, is a single click. At the click of a button, you can just do a remediation, or just do a host isolation from the Carbon Black console, meaning which the infected host will lose the network connectivity from rest of the network and will only get connected to Carbon Black Cloud. And that's where as a security admin, I can perform the various remediation action. I can take the secure remote shell of the infected host, list down all the malicious process, kill the malicious process, do the memory dumps, perform the hex dumps, run the remediation script. If I see there is a vulnerability that exists in my environment, I can even upload the patch, make sure that the machine is now clean and secure, and then bring the machine back to the network at a single click. So that's where the EDR gives you that visibility to have, I would say, something like a CCTV camera. So you can imagine this as a CCTV camera which can go back in time, help you understand that what kind of threats existed within your environment. So that's where this visibility from the EDR comes into picture, that you have a clear visibility that what went wrong within your environment, how it started within your organization, to give you a complete process tree kind of a view, so that you understand that was it a browser process, was it an email client which was having a Excel based attachment, which once a macro was enabled, the script ran in the backend, which just ran a mimicat script which was trying to dump credentials within your and within the host machine. So that's where EDR gives you a complete visibility from the host point of view to understand the complete attack kill chain, so that you can harden your defenses, you can make sure that your environment is foolproof to these kind of advanced attacks. Now, if you see, when it comes to with all these capabilities are powered up with the flagship platform that we have from Carbon Black Cloud. As you see on the topmost layer, these are some of the capabilities that we delivered from the SaaS based offering that we see from the Carbon Black Cloud. And these are, like for all the three core pillars that I spoke about. For risk identification, we have audit and remediation, which gives you the capability to run the pre-built query. When I say pre-built queries, these are, I would say, close to 2000 plus queries that exist on the Carbon Black Cloud platform, and I will cover it up in our demo session shortly after this presentation. Also, with risk identification, we give you capability to perform a vulnerability assessment across your endpoints, across your workloads, irrespective of the fact whether you are on any environment, Windows, Mac, Linux, as well as to perform NGAV and device control kind of capability, EDR kind of capability, and to I would say secure and manage your endpoints, your workloads. And now we have capabilities to even manage your containerized and Kubernetes platform. So that's where you have got a single lightweight sensor which can deliver all these capability. Today, if you feel that you're just gonna go for NGAV kind of a module and you don't need all these capabilities, so all these capabilities are modular in nature. You may grow as your as per the need of the organization. Nothing changes at the endpoint side. There's just an endpoint lightweight sensor. And when I say lightweight sensor, I was reading most of the questions in the chat box which says that there's a heavy utilization with the moment the sensors and all these capabilities are turned on. And the best part is as you see, all these capabilities are powered up by the SaaS based platform that we have from the Carbon Black Cloud. So at the endpoint side, you just have, I would say, the sensor, or you may call it as an agent from the Carbon Black Cloud. And what this agent is doing is this agent is continuously kind of capturing all the process events, your network connections, your command line executions, your file modifications, script modifications, and all these data is sent to the Carbon Black Cloud. where it is profiled and run against the attack analytics platform, basis the threat intel feeds that we have, basis which we understand that what is the threat, and then the enforcement comes into picture from the carbon black sensor, and then we delivered all these capabilities. Since all the heavy lifting is done on the cloud, that's where the CPU utilization remains less than 2% at the endpoint side. And that's the beauty of, I would say, the performance that we are talking, that we are delivering from carbon black cloud, which is kind of managing close to 40 million sensors globally as on today, and kind of processing close to 1 trillion events per day. So as you see from the management perspective, we support heterogeneous platform irrespective of the fact whether the endpoint is on Windows, Mac, Linux, whether the endpoint is on-prem or any of the public cloud platform. And the best part is the management over your workloads which are running over vSpheres, your Horizon VDI clients, and the Kubernetes. All of these infrastructure is supported. A big point to note out here is that for the virtual machines which are running over vSphere, VMware has done a game changer out here. So for virtual machines or the workloads which are running over vSphere, we have gone almost agentless. We have done the native integration within the vSphere platform. That means we don't even need to separately install an agent of Carbon Black within the virtual machines. We just need to enable the Carbon Black prevention within the virtual machines, and it gets auto deployed within the platform itself. And that's where we are talking about more built-in and more intrinsic security when we talk about the VMware security strategy. As you see, all these core capabilities which are there on the topmost layer, they are delivered from the SaaS-based platform. We do have some on-prem solutions. One is Carbon Black application control. This is something I would say application whitelisting kind of a solution, which only is allow the known execution, trusted execution within your environment. It also have file integrity monitoring, and specifically I would say this solution is targeted towards the high and critical workloads, your kiosk, your ATM machine, your OT kind of environment. And then we also have on-prem EDR solution for customers who don't have a mandate that they want to send data within the cloud platform. So that's where we also have on-prem solution where all the management and the processing happens on-prem via the Carbon Black EDR server, which will do the incident investigation and threat hunting locally within the customer environment. So moving forward, I spoke about the platform. Let me quickly talk about the capabilities. And when it comes to prevention, so I saw multiple questions with respect to the capabilities. So when it comes to prevention within Carbon Black follows a defense in depth kind of a model, where we have layered security defense when it comes to preventing both malware and non-malware kind of attacks. We don't rely too much on signatures, because we all understand this is the pyramid of pain, how easy for an attacker is to change the signatures and hash. And that's where we do have a reputation of signatures, but we leverage various other prevention techniques to stop these kind of advanced attacks. So we have we perform local static analysis using the machine learning model at the sensor level, basis which we understand that if there is a binary which has reached at the Carbon Black sensor, is it having a known malware or a unknown malware. Then the second layer of prevention that we have, the core prevention that I would say is our streaming behavioral based prevention, which specifically looks into the fileless and living of the land kind of attacks. We look into that how this particular binary or how this particular process or application is behaving within your environment. Is it something legitimate? Is it something not allowed? Basis which the Carbon Black enforcement engine comes into play to prevent any malicious attack. And then the third layer of prevention that we have is the cloud based detonation. So we also have, I would say, integrated sandbox within the cloud. So the moment the Carbon Black sensor receives any unknown binary which have got no reputation, it may be a 0-day kind of an exploit. So what Carbon Black sensor will do, Carbon Black sensor will automatically send that unknown binary to the detonation sandbox that we have. That's where this binary gets executed, and based on the verdict, which normally comes in a matter of few seconds, this binary will either be allowed or will automatically blocked within your organization. I would say no action needed from your side. This all happens automatically, and I will talk about these capabilities when I move into the demo environment. And then The fourth layer is the dynamic rules engine. So Carbon Black threat analysis team has also curated some out of the box, these rules, curated rules, which specifically look into, I would say, there are nowadays, many exploits and, exploit kits like, Metasploit, Empire, Cobalt. So the moment we see that, if there is an attacker, who's trying to run an encoded script, which is trying to, do a memory dump, or, which is trying to do a credential dump, that's where, Carbon Black has capabilities to decode these encoded script on the fly, understand the behavior of this particular, command line script, and basis which, take the next action. So that's where, these dynamic rules engine comes into picture. And then the significant, I would say, layer which is nowadays very much prominent is the ransomware. So for ransomware specifically, we have a deception layer, and what it does is, the moment the Carbon Black sensor is, installed locally at the endpoint, we have something known as canary files which are deployed across the file systems. And what Carbon Black is continuously doing is continuously looking into the behavior of, these specifically the ransomware like activities. So the moment the attacker is, trying to modify the master boot record, trying to delete the file systems, trying to encrypt, your any file, that's where, these canary files specifically look into these behavior, and that's where Carbon Black sensor goes ahead and, terminate these kind of process. Now, while we have, multiple layers that, make very difficult for an attacker to evade within your environment, we have a single policy engine with out of the box detection and prevention policies that prevents your environment against attack and any malicious behavior. Now, if you see, our capabilities have been validated by various third parties, including AV comparatives and AV test, where we scored highest vis-a-vis, our competitors. And these are some of the latest report as per the last year results. Now, let me quickly talk about, the endpoint bundles. So we have these 4 bundles which are available from the Carbon Black Cloud, starting from, the prevention. So the prevention comes along with the NGAV capabilities. So if you are looking for, just, more than, I would say, prevention for known signature, or, I would say, prevention for any fileless living of the land or ransomware kind of attack, this is, I would say, your solution to go for. The prevention bundle is the first one. Then we also have endpoint standard, endpoint advanced, and enterprise, and endpoint enterprise. Endpoint standard adds the capabilities of, device control. So you also have capabilities to restrict your mass storage devices like USB, whom to allow access, or, completely block the access within your environment. And then to add the capabilities of EDR, which gives you a complete process tree so that you can perform your alert triage, do the threat hunting, perform the RCA within your environment. And then the endpoint advanced is the third bundle, which adds on the capabilities of audit and remediation, and adding the capability of doing vulnerability management within your environment. So if you recall, when I started, giving you a glimpse on, our approach, I spoke about risk identification. So risk identification is delivered using audit and remediation module within the Carbon Black Cloud. That's where, we give you a capability to run multiple pre-built queries, using which you can understand the security posture of your endpoints as well as your workloads. And then for the most mature teams who already have their SIM and SOAR environment in place and are looking for automated threat hunting, multiple threat feeds from various sources, that's where, we have got endpoint enterprise, which comes with enterprise EDR and all the capabilities of endpoint advanced. So these are some of the endpoint bundles. So you can look for the capabilities. All these capabilities, as I mentioned, are modular in nature. So you may choose to go for only NGAV, you may choose to go for only behavioral based EDR, or, as standalone capabilities like audit and remediation. So all these capabilities are, available standalone and are modular in nature. Talking further, I think this is something which is important to discuss. No solution works best when, it is deployed in a standalone mode. So that holds true for Carbon Black. With Carbon Black today, we integrate with most of, your existing security solutions with, I would say, over 500 plus product and service partners integration that exist as on today, with SIM, SOAR, intelligence, and, the perimeter security solution. As you see out here, we support bi-directional integration. So when I say bi-directional integration, it is not something that, we are just having an open API integration and, we are sharing this data. Rather, with integration, when I talk about, with SOAR vendors like, Splunk, Demisto, Exabeam, as you see out here. You also have capabilities that you can perform an action of, making a host isolation, doing a blacklisting of an hash straight away from the source, and as well as, from the same SIM console. That's where, it holds true for perimeter security devices, like, with with the integration like Zscaler. So with the Carbon Black Cloud deployed at the endpoint side, we have integrations with perimeter security devices like Checkpoint, Palo Alto, your web security gateways like Zscaler. Imagine that a Carbon Black Cloud sensor, the moment it sees a malicious binary, it not just can use its own sandbox, but it also can send that binary to the Zia sandbox of the Zscaler. That's where the Zscaler processes that binary and pass on the verdict to Carbon Black sensor, and then Carbon Black takes that action. All this happens seamlessly because of the close integration that exists across multiple security vendor, as you see out here. Other than that, and this is just a number, I would say today we protect more than 25,000 organizations globally, and as you see, we cut across almost all the verticals. When it comes to our capabilities, Carbon Black Cloud is, as I mentioned, that is a forefront in endpoint security innovation. We have been listed as a security leaders in the Forrester's Wave endpoint security SaaS report that got published in May 2021. This out here. Carbon Black also has been a consistent performer in the MITRE attack evolution that happened every year. Today, this year, this happened for Carbon Act and Fin7. So we provided one of the best telemetry against all the attack evaluations that happened by MITRE, and that report is something publicly available on the MITRE. I would urge everyone, just to go there and understand and see that how Carbon Black Cloud was able to provide the best detection and remediation capabilities. So with that, I would stop for a while and take you to the intuitive dashboard and the demonstration from Carbon Black. So as you see, I am on the intuitive dashboard of Carbon Black Cloud, and from the dashboard itself, you will be able to see that what is the endpoint health, how many endpoints are active, how many endpoints are inactive. Active ones are the ones who are continuously communicating their status to Carbon Black Cloud. All the sensor data that goes from the endpoint to the Carbon Black Cloud is encrypted via TLS 1.2. So we make sure that all the communication remains secured via encryption. And then as you see out here, we have complete visibility with respect to what is the amount of the alerts that we are looking on a, I would say I can categorize this data on a weekly, daily, or even an hourly basis, the way I want. And then what is the health of the devices, how many critical vulnerability that exist on the virtual machines, on my endpoints. And when I say vulnerabilities, we not just look into the OS vulnerabilities, we also look into the application vulnerabilities. So the applications like your Google Chrome, your PDF, your other applications. So we look into both your OS vulnerabilities as well as your application vulnerabilities, and we give you a score with respect to what is this vulnerability, how it can be exploited, and what is the remediation advice with respect to that vulnerability. Now if you go down, you will see some of the latest threat reports, and as you see some of them are very recent, like Black Matter ransomware, Kaseya. You will see any the latest one that have been out sometime recently. And if you see if you open any one of these reports, so if you let me just quickly show you one of these report for Black Matter ransomware. So you'll see that while we publish these particular reports, we'll talk about what this ransomware is all about, how this is trying to decode the configuration information, how this ransomware is trying to, how this particular ransomware is trying to exploit your organization, how this particular ransomware behaves within your environment, what are the typical IOCs that this particular Black Matter ransomware leverages before it start encrypting your file systems. Also along with that, we talk about that while your environment is protected by Carbon Black with respect to ransomware, Black Matter ransomware, so we clearly figure it out that to show you as part of this report that Black Matter ransomware is blocked and detected by existing policies within Carbon Black products. So while you can be assured that your environment is prevented against this particular ransomware attack, what we provide as part of this report is a list of IOCs that we have seen across the wild while with respect to this black matter ransomware. Now, as a matter of next step, what you can do is you can make use these of IOCs across your security gateway devices like your perimeter firewall, and you make sure that you achieve the similar level of prevention at your gateway security level, while at the endpoint layer the carbon black is taking care of the prevention. From the endpoint side, you can make use of these IOCs and enable the similar prevention across your rest of the security stack. Also, along with these threat reports, we also give you a capability to search for this threat within your environment. Search for this threat means that while you don't have this prevention as of now, but does this kind of a threat already exist within your environment? So the moment you click on search for threat, you are automatically navigated to the investigate page, which I would say is a raw footage of each and everything which is happening within your environment. And that's where it gives you a complete visibility if there is any event that gets popped up, to show you that this is one of the event that correlates with this kind of search query which was similar to black matter ransomware. And then that's where you can investigate the matter, you can do a threat hunting, and look into that specific suspicious event if that happens to be relevant for your environment. Now, from the alerts page, let me just talk about some of the capability from the prevention perspective, from the NGAV perspective. Now, the moment you click on alerts, you are taken to the alerts page. That's where you will have complete visibility to understand that what all are the various kind of threats, what is the severity level. At any point of time, what you can do is you can actually just expand the view and understand that what this threat is all about. What is the reason behind this threat? What is the effective reputation? What all are the TTPs that we have seen with respect to this particular threat? So let me just kind of expand this view, move into the process tree view to show you that how it can really help you. So the moment you click on the process tree, this actually shows you that how this particular non-malware threat started within your organization. So it clearly says that this application explorer.exe is trying to invoke another application. So this is where a parent process is trying to invoke another process, and this could be a blacklisted process. So the moment it is blacklisted process, the carbon black will go ahead and block that particular action for you, and then it will give you a complete alert triage kind of capability, wherein you can understand that how it started, which host system was impacted, what was the public IP and the private IP for that particular machine, what was the policy which that was applied the moment the carbon black goes ahead and taken that action, what was the process ID, what was the time, and what are the techniques the adversaries are trying to use while they are trying to evade within your environment. So that's where it's made very simple to even for even an L1 analyst to understand that it's a blacklist application which is trying to run another application. And as you see, the carbon black cloud is integrated with Mitre attack framework. So you see that there is a Mitre TID which is tagged here. So the moment you click on Mitre TID, you are taken to a Mitre page which will show you that what this TTP is exactly depicted here. So there is a native API that which is trying to leverage a cross proc event here, and which is what is shown in this particular page. And then, as a matter of fact, you get a complete visibility by doing a drill down into your environment, that how it actually eventually started within your organization. So we see that this application explorer.exe, this actually invoked this another application, and this operation was successful. And there is an alert with respect to that, because this is a cross proc event which is happening here. At any point of time, if I really want to see that what was the parent process, what is the effective reputation of that process, what is the severity of that particular process, is this process, if I really want to see that what is the effective reputation of this process or this application, I can quickly just go to the virus total and see how other AV vendors have rated or this particular process within the virus total platform. Also, at any point of time, if I see that it needs to be added to by approved list, banned list, so I can just simply just move it to the approved list or the banned list. It will automatically show up here that this hash has been seen on how many further devices. Is it like 6 devices or 600 devices? And then you can make it a global ban or global approval across your environment. So while carbon black takes a action on the events and the alerts, you also have an option that you can take the next step further to delete the application, to approve the application if there are any false positives. And then at any point of time, if I see that if there is a malicious alert or there is any suspicious alert for that matter, what I can do is quarantine alert. So if you remember, I was talking about, doing a host quarantine. That's where, you can do a host quarantine. The moment you do host quarantine, which would mean is that, this host will lose the network connectivity from rest of the network and will only get connected to Carbon Black Cloud. And that's where, as a next action, what I can do is I can take go live. Go live would mean taking a secure remote shell of this particular host and then performing various forensic actions, doing various incident investigation, just to see that, what are the active and the malicious process, which are running, just to trying to eliminate if there is any malware which is running, or, making sure, if I really need to do some investigations, do some memory dumps to contain the attack, and then take any remediation steps and then bring the machine back to the network. So from the NGAV perspective, let me just talk about some of the capabilities which comes as part of the policies. So the policies, as you see out here, and this is something which is very relevant part from Carbon Black Cloud. As you see, we have out of the box policies which not just prevent your environment from known malwares, unknown applications, your potential unwanted programs, suspected malware. Rather, if you see, your applications, your trusted applications, your like your MS Office, I define a policy that, while they should be allowed to run, but the moment they try to scrape the memory of another process, they try to, invoke a command interpreter, they try to inject a code, that's where, Carbon Black will just go ahead and, deny that action. Similarly, while these legitimate applications like, PowerShell, Python, some of the known applications like, C script, W script, while these are allowed to execute, but the moment they try to perform a ransomware like behavior, they try to, inject a code to scrap the memory, that's where, Carbon Black will just go ahead and, prevent that action to happen in real time. And then you also have an option from the sensor perspective that, you can install or require a code, so you can make it completely tamper proof. So the moment the sensor is installed, nobody will be able to uninstall the sensor, making sure that, the prevention is always enabled. And then you always have an option that, you want to run the background scan. So as I mentioned, we don't rely much on scan. There is just one background one-time scan which is done just to make sure there is no I would say, if there is any existing or a dormant malware that exists within your platform. Otherwise, the platform, since the Carbon Black Cloud is continuously looking into the asset inventory that you already have, we continuously look into that, what are the any abnormal or malicious behavior as part of the process events which are happening across the endpoints, basis which, there's any real-time action which is needed by the Carbon Black sensor, it will just go ahead and take that action. So from the policy perspective, we have made it very easy. You also have an option that, you can create any policy. The best part is that, the moment you create any policy, and this is one of the clear differentiation that we have from Carbon Black, is that, you can just go ahead and, test the rule. So test the rule, which would give you a capability that, you create a custom policy, and before you, look into that, there's a policy which is created and which is, creating a lot of performance impact. What you can do is you can test the rule based on the last 30 days of historical data, just to assess the, the impact of that particular rule, impact of a, custom policy that you have created within your environment. So this is again one of the key USP from the Carbon Black Cloud that gives you a capability to understand and, assess the risk within your environment. I spoke about the integrated sandbox, and that's where, we have got cloud analysis module, the integrated sandbox within the cloud, which gives you capability to analyze, any unknown binaries which are there within your environment. For any malware that exists that removed, you will have a complete visibility from here itself. You also have capability, to add your own blacklist, or, if you already have a list, of your approved application or a banned list kind of application. So you create, or simply just upload your reputation repository here itself. So you have an option to create your reputation based on the hash, based on the IT tools. So you may be running multiple IT tools, and the moment you define the IT tools, automatically, all the child process with respect to that trusted IT tools will get auto approved. Similarly, based on any CA server that you define, we have an option to define the reputation based on the banned list and the approved list that you want to create. So if you want to ban an application, you can ban the application based on, as I mentioned, based on, the hash, based on the IT tools. You can also ban the application straight away from the policies. So I showed you up that, how using the let's say if I go here, so I can just simply define that, AnyDesk as an application. Okay, so I can define that, AnyDesk an application should not be allowed to run within my environment. So I can specify the application path, I can specify the application name, basis which, I can define necessary action I want to take within my organization. So that's how the flexible, the policy module is within the Carbon Black Cloud. When it comes to deployment is pretty straightforward. You know, you have capability to do the deployment using the email based activation, or using the, the silent installation using the group policy based method. So we have, as you see out here, we have got multiple options which are listed out here, wherein, I can do the sensor installation. As you see out here, the sensor can be supported across multiple platform using Windows, your Mac environment. Even the Mac Big Sur is supported, RHEL, CentOS, Oracle. So we have a sensor support for almost all the known operating system and the supported operating system. So for Windows Desktop, Windows 7 and above is supported, and for Windows Server, Windows 2008 R2 and above is very well supported by Carbon Black Cloud. And the best part is, you are getting visibility across all your environment, not just your endpoints, your workloads. And tomorrow when you move into the cloud native environment, and you may move into a, a container and a Kubernetes kind of a platform, that's where, we have capabilities to to manage even your Kubernetes platform. So imagine that, Carbon Black Cloud bringing you a unified view, not just from your endpoint workload, as well as, for your Kubernetes clusters tomorrow when you move into a cloud native environment. And then, as I mentioned, that, we have a open API platform which makes sure that, if there is any SIMS or solution that exists within your environment, we integrate with that. If there is any custom integration that needs to be done with any threat intel feeds, or with any threat party, I would say, like, your Stix taxi servers, or any other third party vendors, so that also can be done using the open API integration that exists. So entire platform of Carbon Black Cloud is, I would say, let me just quickly go on here. Yeah, is enabled with two-factor authentication. As you see out here, it's SAML enabled. And then you have an option that, it will have a complete RBAC kind of a control. You can delegate the user the kind of access that you want to have from the administrative action perspective. There's a complete audit log that completely gives you a capability to understand that, what sort of actions the Carbon Black admin and the various subsequent commands that have been ran by the various, delegated users that have been created within the Carbon Black Cloud. From the let me just quickly, before I forget, let me just quickly take you to the investigate page as well. So investigate page is, as I mentioned earlier, is a raw footage of each and everything that is happening within your environment. And that's where, we provide you from Carbon Black the capabilities to have these, pre-built queries that really helps you to perform your threat hunt from day one. So imagine that, as a L1 analyst, I really want to understand that, are there any adversaries, who are trying to invoke a command Twitter, or, trying to perform a ransomware like behavior. So the moment you type, select these kind of pre-built searches, automatically a query gets generated, and you can simply just, navigate and search your infrastructure with the help of these pre-built query. You also have got this search guide, which really have got multiple search fields, which really helps you to understand that, if you really want to investigate based on a specific parent process, based on, I would say, a parent process ID, or, based on a specific child process device ID, or even, I would say, as simple as, based on a specific TTP. So if I really want to know that, how many, of the process, are trying to do a code drop, are trying to, how many of such process, are trying to do a code drop, or have using a multiple packed code. So the moment I select this, and automatically my search gets more and more granular, and then I have a chance to look into these filtered events within the set of, the granular searches that I decide, and basis which I can just navigate, expand the view, and understand that, what is this threat all about. As part of risk identification, if you recall, we also spoke about, audit and remediation. So with audit and remediation, as I spoke about, you have close to 2000 plus pre-built query within the Carbon Black Cloud platform that really gives you capabilities to understand the risk within your environment. So say for example, for IT hygiene, if you really want to understand that, are there any systems which have got blank password enabled, so you have an option to straight away run the query. You also have an option to schedule on a daily, weekly, or a monthly basis these queries, and email the query results back to you. And then it is not just that you simply have to run these only queries. You also have an option to generate your own custom query by using the SQL query builder that we have. So you also can create your own custom queries, schedule this query, or simply just run this query within the Carbon Black Cloud platform, which is as you see, supported across all the three platform as you see out here. So if you go on to the Visit Query Exchange platform, which is open to our customers as well as partners, we have got close to 2000 plus queries, which we can just simply just run it across with respect to threat hunting, vulnerability management, from the compliance, and then look into the IT hygiene and the security posture of these devices. So I would say that's a quick demo from the Carbon Black perspective. And if there are any further questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Neha, for taking us through that very informative presentation. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd once again like to invite Arjun Vishwanathan. He is the Chief Research Officer for Strategic and will be joining us to summarize the sessions for the day and share the key takeaways. Over to you, Arjun.
Hello, and I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, your host back again. We hope you enjoyed each bit of those immersive conversations, those fascinating conversations with industry experts. We'd personally like to take this opportunity to thank Amit Dhawan for navigating such exciting conversations with such eminent folks from manufacturing and the e-commerce sectors that are critical to India's growth and acceleration of value towards its golden age. That pretty much was all about the masterclass on business resilience, and we'd like to thank each of you for your participation and enthusiastic set of questions that you did certainly ask. We will make sure that those questions are addressed by the relevant folks, both at Dell as well as from within industry, folks that you heard speaking to Amit Dhawan. Once again, thank you very much for joining us today. Stay tuned on this, how do I put this? Well, on this channel for more such interesting events in the future. And like always, and as I mentioned right at the beginning, please do take out a few minutes. Won't take up more than about a couple of minutes of your calendar time to fill in the feedback form. Like I said, your views, your feedback, your insights, and your points are invaluable to us for us to be able to produce, create, present, and deliver such immersive as well as thought-provoking and knowledge-based events for you in the future, such that you're able to march forward on this complex journey with resolute confidence and value orientation and success. Thank you once again from all of us here at Dell Technologies and Strategic. Stay safe. God bless. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Arjun. Thank you all once again for joining us today. We hope that the sessions have been both fruitful and insightful for all of you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we'd once again request you to please fill in the feedback form. Your feedback is invaluable to us as it helps us improve the structure, content, and delivery of our conferences, webinars, and masterclasses. Ladies and gentlemen, what's more, upon submitting the feedback form, you will receive a certificate of attendance for today's masterclass and the cyber recovery white paper. So do ensure to fill in the feedback form and submit it. I thank you all once again on behalf of Dell Technologies, VMware, and Strategy, and look forward to welcoming you at our future conferences and webinars. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great day ahead.